Hey everybody, it's Tracy from whoistracy.com. Just have a video of the last card I showcased on my blog. I happen to have the stamp set still sitting on my desk, and this is Avery L. Petals and Stems. I don't know if this is still for sale or if it's been discontinued. I bought this years ago, and it doesn't get enough love. So I decided I would try and use it today for a completely different look from the last card I made. So what I did was I got two different colors of pink ink, and these are palette inks, but you can use any color, obviously. I happen to have quite a few palettes from a while ago, and they're still perfectly fine, so I use them. I made some masks out of Post-it notes, and I'm just gonna mask the flowers and stamp for some extra interest and dimension. I didn't have a plan in mind as far as the layout goes. I just wanted to get some flowers and a couple leaves in there, but leave a nice open space for a sentiment. And on this leaf, I'm really not sure what happened, but you can see it just doesn't stamp that last leaf at all. And I went back a second time and it still missed. So I decided to leave it as is, knowing I was going to go back with my Prismacolor pencils anyways to add some shading. I figured I could fill that space in at that time. So you'll see me take out all of these pencils. I'm not going to use all of them, but I was taking out any color that I thought would work. But since this is craft cardstock, the colors definitely show up a little different on craft than they do on white or cream colored. So I got a little scrap out to the side, and you'll see me go over there just to test the color. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade the darker flowers first using one color pink. I'm really just outlining these and coming in a little for some dimension, some interest. And then I'm going to go back with different colors later. So I do all the darker flowers first, then I go in on these lighter flowers. And I started with a light pink, but I wasn't crazy about how that looked. So you saw me erase that a minute ago. And I went back with a cool gray. And that worked okay, but I still wasn't crazy about it. So I switched back to the darker flowers. I went in with a darker pencil, and what I tried to do was darken the shadows a bit more and then add some lines for the petals and things. Again, I wasn't being too careful. I wanted this to have a looser feel to it. I was going for something, I don't know, I call it sketchy, but I don't know what the real term is, just more loosely colored. I really only used one green pencil for the foliage, just outlining and then adding some slight shadowing. And I did go back and add that central vein to some of the leaves because I think that really makes them pop more. So you'll see me do that on most of the leaves. And then I had to tackle this blank spot here, and that's where I really dug into the other greens that I had. I think I used 3 or 4 different greens to get it looking close. It didn't need to be perfect, but I wanted it to be, close to the others. And I think it did an okay job. You don't really notice it unless you're looking for it. Then I decided that the lighter flowers were still missing something, so I took a brown pencil and I went in to lightly outline and shadow a bit, and I think that definitely made them more defined. It made them pop a bit more. And then I decided, why not add some white? So I grabbed my white pencil and I got, I don't know, I'll say some zigzag lines I added. So I just go back and forth a little bit to outline and add these lines around the outside of the flowers. And I think that really finishes them off, especially the lighter colors. The lighter flowers really makes them pop. And you can see in the close-up video at the end or on my blog that that really worked out great. So now I'm just going to add my sentiment. I decided to use this Hello die that I have. I believe it's from Simon Says Stamp. That way I could use this card for any occasion. Now I'm running this through my die cutting machine, and since I have a magnetic mat, I thought I would be okay. But it didn't cut perfectly the first time through. I added it a second time and it moved slightly, so I had to cut it again and it still didn't work. So I finally got smart and decided to use a small piece of tape along with the mat, and that finally worked for me, which I should have done in the first place, but I didn't think it would be a big deal with the magnetic mat, but it was. So I've just got one shade of pink there, and I thought I'd add a darker shade of the same dye on top of it, slightly askew for a kind of shadow look. So I cut that out of a little darker pink cardstock. And then what I'm going to do is just glue them together. And I know I've heard people say that they have a hard time with these small scripty word dies, gluing them, and a lot of times they'll use spray adhesive. I actually don't have that much of a problem. What I do is, I believe this is a Tombow glue, and I just add small dots along the back, and then I kind of smooth the dots out as I run the applicator tip along, and that really helps to like keeps you from getting those glue bubbles, and that works for me. So I always make sure that when I'm gluing them together, I do that on a scrap piece in case any glue does bleed, but there really isn't much of anything. And this glue does dry clear. You don't even notice it. So I decided that I'd try to add a little bit of twine to this card. It felt like it was just missing something to me. So I grabbed some white twine and I thought maybe I'd wrap it around the top, do a bow, not a bow. Then I moved it to the bottom, but as you can see, I was really struggling. I just did not like the way it looked at all. And another thing you'll notice about me is I reuse my supplies. So instead of cutting this off instantly to make the bow, I leave it attached to make sure I like the way it looks. And in this case, I didn't. So that way I didn't waste a piece of the twine. I didn't have a random length of twine that needed to be used up. I can just rewind it back onto the spool. I decided to just add a few sequins. And that's really it to this card. I'll glue my sentiment on, glue the sequins, and it's done. This is a pretty easy one-layer card that didn't take much time. So thanks a lot for viewing. I hope you'll check out my blog and give this a thumbs up if you liked it.